Inherency. United States water systems require massive upgrades, which is increasing the cost for consumers. Lane 19. Water is already unaffordable for 1 of every 10 United States households, a share that's forecast to triple more than 30% within the next 5 years. Harm 1. Cost. People who cannot pay their high water bills risk losing their homes and children and risk being arrested. Jones and Moulton 16. In 21 states, a parent's inability to provide running water in the home can be considered child neglect. Thus, not having running water can contribute to Child Protective Services removing children from the home and placing them in foster care. A tenant's inability to pay water bill can lead to eviction. Harm 2. Health. Unhealthy drinking water has led to a variety of negative health impacts in children. Green 19. The contamination of this long-struggling city's water exposed nearly 30,000 school children to a neurotoxin known to have detrimental effects on a child's developing brain. Plan. The United States federal government should expand access to privatized water so that everyone has the option to choose it as a source. Solvency. Privatized owned companies can offer realistic rates that don't sacrifice quality in the long term. Little 12. Privatization offers economies of scale wherein a single company can provide the financial and human resources to serve many small systems in a far more cost-effective manner. Private operators must finally address decades of disinvestment to make a system healthy.
So if water is already unaffordable, why promote a private water system?
Because private companies have more expertise and better resources, they can repair the water system without raising costs in the ways that public would raise costs to need to get those same resources.
Cost, no solvency. Private utilities cost more and ignore health concerns, and consumers get stuck with the cost. Klettner 20. The average community with privatized water pay 59% more than those with government supplies. Low-income families. The highest cost increase often happens to people on a fixed income. Dovey 15. Perhaps the most troubling aspect of privatized water is how it can disproportionately impact low-income ratepayers, paying bills as high as $600 in areas where people only live on fixed income. Expertise and jobs. Private water companies Viola save money by cutting jobs using cheaper chemicals, avoiding government oversight. Hosea Leonard 18. When they first came in, they immediately fired the head of engineering and head of finances. I knew we were in trouble then. Environment and health. Private companies hurt the environment, which negates potential cost saving or health protections. Arnold 09. Private water companies calculate the value of a source, protect water protection land, and trade off between potential treatment, cost saving, and potential revenue from sale or development without considering their ecological and human value.
So as you stated, there's already a lot of unhealthy drinking water that has negative health impacts. So wouldn't it be better to switch to a private water system and reduce contamination to solve these health impacts?
No, as I said in my speech earlier, there are times where private companies cut corners and leads to medical problems.
So for the cost, New Jersey shows that privatizing water can keep costs low for a long time while upgrading systems and improving oversight by Hughes and Fox 19. Those projections estimated that New Jersey American water plans for rates to either be lower or at least comparable to the borough's rates for the next 30 years. Furthermore, the borough's rates will remain considerably lower than rates in other areas of New Jersey. Low-income families. The New Jersey example shows that private companies can keep costs low for everyone, including low-income families. Our inherency and harms arguments from my partner's first speech show that public water systems are already causing massive problems for low-income families. Expertise and jobs. Government-run public utilities can't solve problems alone. They need support from private companies, by Deanne 17. Private water companies have proven expertise in science and engineering and have played an important role to ensure that treated water is safe for customers and surrounding communities. Environment and health. Privately run utilities are much less likely to violate health laws than public utilities, by Konsicki and Teodoro 14. Our analysis also revealed a tendency for enforcement officials to impose less severe punishment on public agencies violating the CAA and SWDA when compared to similarly non-compliant private firms. Thank you.
Is the New Jersey example isolated? Does it guarantee that all private companies keep costs low?
The New Jersey example is an isolated example, but it's a good representation of how private water can benefit other cities as well.
So first, I would like to show that an example of how privatization can fail. Atlanta shows how privatization can fail, providing unhealthy water and poor quality of service. As Water cut jobs and training to reduce expenses, it developed backlogs of thousands of work orders and delivered poor quality of water, often with inadequate pressure. As a result, water ran orange to brown for many customers, tinting clothes laundered in it and hair washed in it. And United Water had to issue numerous boil water orders because low pressure or insufficient water treatment made the water unsafe to drink. And in addition to that, private companies just generally ignore health concerns. To quote Kuttner, the fallacy, however, is that many privatized systems are also out of compliance. The French multinational Veolia issued a report in 2015 certifying that Flint, Michigan's water system met EPA standards, but neglected to mention high lead concentrations.
All right, so how can you be sure that public water won't be as harmful as private?
My goal here isn't to prove that public water is better than private. The affirmative should be trying to prove that private water is better than public. And from the current evidence that we have right now, it doesn't necessarily seem that private has any benefits over public.
Thank you, Judge, for listening to my date round today. You should vote for the negative side because the affirmative only wants money and doesn't care about the community. Private water companies cut jobs and it's way too expensive, which disproportionately affects low-income families. Coming from a low-income family myself, I'd be extremely upset this was happening in my area.
Judge, thank you for coming to this debate and judging this round. You should vote for the affirmative because we solve on cost and health. To address the issue of cost, I'd like to remind everyone here, that private companies have a lot of expertise and a lot of high quality technology as far as just better resources in general. This means they can easily repair the water system in a way the public cannot without raising prices. Private will not raise prices at all, and public will. Moving on to the health issue, private companies are under contracts and they need to provide high quality water to maintain these contracts. If they provide water that causes any health issues, they will lose the contract and lose their profit. They have an incentive to provide high quality water and to use their resources to keep prices low. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge, for taking your time to judge this debate round. First, the cost. The cost is that public water systems generally have local experts that are attuned to the local environment. That's something that the private companies can't really provide. Now moving on, in terms of health, safety, and stuff. So contracts still fail. We have already shown in the Atlanta example that we can't really, that when a private company fails, it fails dramatically. Under a bad contract, the city can't even transfer out or break that contract until a few years after the contract is ran. Switching off a contract like this is really, really difficult. Private companies aren't necessarily in it for the consumers, they're in it for their shareholders. So vote neg because AF really hasn't proven that private water is any better than public water.
All right, so to our judge, you should side with the affirmative because we would provide safe and affordable drinking water to everybody. We would keep costs low for the public, including low-income families, and our trained and professional engineers would be sure to apply only the safest and most satisfactory water. With their knowledge on infrastructure and water quality, they would work harder to supply cleaner water than the public would. I want to remind you that private companies are much less likely to violate health laws than public, and they would keep their water up to high standards. As far as contract manipulation, private water companies have a reputation to uphold, and a few bad examples should not keep the public from contracting with them. Thank you so much for listening, and you should side with the affirmative.